Yes, welcome sisters to today's masterclass, which is the Empress Rising. So we will talk about how to rebirth ourselves and rise from the ashes like the phoenix. Just dropping in together here, we'll do some breath work, closing the eyes and just tuning into the breath, taking an inhale. Together, just filling up the ribs, filling up the chest with air through the belly like a balloon. And fully exhale, pushing the air out. And we'll do this a couple more times together. Inhale, filling up the ribs. Filling the belly up with air like a balloon. And exhale, letting out any tension with the exhale audibly, pushing it out, making a sound. And another big inhale in together. And exhale, letting out any of that tension, pushing all that tension out with an exhale, really opening the mouth, letting it out, using your voice. Maybe shaking a little bit. Noticing how good it feels to be here in this moment. I'm so glad you are joining me here today for today's class. So, Empress Rising. I would ask that you guys prepare for this. If you haven't already, make sure you have your journals and a pen with you because we'll do a journaling exercise together. And make sure you have about, I'm not quite sure how long this will take, but at least an hour of your time to go through this class together and then to journal afterwards. What is the Empress? I have 3 tarot cards here that I've kind of based this practice off of. If you guys don't know, I do dabble in the tarot. I wouldn't call myself a tarot reader. I kind of just intuitively pull cards. I know there's a lot more that goes into it. I have friends that do read tarot, and some of them who are very into it and teach classes. I have others who just simply do intuitive readings, and I'm kind of somewhere in between. So I'm someone who kind of falls somewhere in between, where I do a daily intuitive reading on myself, just usually 1 or 3 cards, and I've done readings on others too, but it's something that's more of a hobby of mine now than something that I do professionally. But if you are at all familiar with the tarot, so we have the Empress card, which is one of the major arcanas, and the Empress is like the Queen Mother card. She is very nurturing, loving, and she takes care of her family. Like I like to think of the Empress as the mother card in the tarot. So Empress Rising. We are rising to our Empress. We are rising to become our queen self. We are rising out of the ashes to become the Empress, to become the queen of our destiny. So this card I wanted to show you guys as sort of the inspiration for this class. And now, how do we get to become an Empress? Well, we become the Empress by first mastering the void. Now, what is the void? The 9 of Swords is a tarot card to me that most represents the void, at least for what the void feels like to me. So the 9 of Swords comes from the minor arcana, and we just see the 9 swords hanging over the woman's bed, and she's kind of just crying into her face, sobbing, and it's very dark and alone. So this to me signifies the void. And if you aren't familiar with the void, it's something that we all experience at some point in our lives, sometimes many times in our lives. And to a lot of us, the void can feel like depression. It can feel like a lack of inspiration. The void can feel like fatigue, the inability to get out of bed, wanting to do nothing. Nothing inspires us. And it can be a deep sadness for some. It can be grief. Or for some, the void can feel like numbness, where you feel nothing, just apathy. And it's something that we will all eventually feel. So what I want to discuss in this class is less about doing to become the Empress and more about accepting the void. So taking a step back and sitting in the void until we have recovered, we've rested, we felt our pain, our sorrows, and only then do we find the inspiration. So only after we've sat with ourselves in the void and allowed ourselves to feel those feelings and recognizing that they're there instead of suppressing them and trying to put more on our plates when we are clearly in this scenario. It is feeling that, and then only does that inspiration come where we can rise as the Empress into our full selves and to take care of others. So that is what this class is about. Now, going back to the void, first of all, how many of you, and you can comment below under this video, are in the void right now? How many of you feel like this? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel a sadness? Have you just gone through a major life event? Do you feel nothing? Do you feel apathy? Do you just want to lie in bed all day? How many of you are feeling this right now? And you can just put, you don't have to go into detail about it. You can just put void in the comments and just recognizing this is where you are in your journey right now. And also, I'd like to hear from you all in general. How are you doing right now? Is there anything you're going through? You can just put that in the comment as well. What's your general mood? You can use one word, whether it's happy, joy, sadness, sorrow, hopefulness. Put your general well-being in the comments below, just so I have an idea of where we all are at our stages. And you can put that with your answer to the void question. And going back, so how do we end up here? This doesn't just come out of nowhere, and I want to be very clear, it's different from major depressive disorder. Now, major depressive disorder is a psychological disease. It's a psychological disorder that often requires medications to feel better, and it's not caused by anything other than a chemical imbalance in the brain. And that is so different than what I'm talking about here. The void is due to something major happening in your life that leaves you in this state. So I just want to be clear that I am not a licensed psychologist, and this is not a alternative to therapy or medication for major depressive disorder. This is simply mastering the void after we've gone through a major life event that leaves us feeling in this Nine of Swords state. I do want to say, if you are someone struggling with depression, please get help if you can. I know a lot of us don't like to. And the void can often be mistaken for depression, but there is a distinct difference. And I want to be clear that there's no shame or stigma with getting help when you have something major going on either. This is just an alternative that I've discovered with myself. And I myself was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, or manic depressive as it's called, when I was a teenager. And it's funny because I haven't had any episodes since I was a teenager, and I'm not on medication or anything. I don't feel the need to be on medication because I don't really feel like I'm depressed. I don't feel manic. And it could have been just the fact that I am such a sensitive being and I feel so deeply that maybe when I was a teenager, we didn't know that what I was actually experiencing was the void from traumas that I've went through. But because I wasn't depressed all of the time, they diagnosed me with manic depressive disorder. So, I mean, that has just been my experience with it. Everyone's different. And if you do need help for actual depression, there's no shame in that at all. I'm specifically talking about the void. How do we end up in the void? The void comes after a major life event has affected us to the point that it affects our ego, that we lose a sense of our identity. And this could be a divorce. It could be a breakup. It could be a loss of a job. It could be losing your home. The void could come from the death of a loved one, which I am currently going through right now. So I lost my father, which right now I'm sort of just coping with that. I haven't entered the void yet, but I am aware that it is likely to come. So something major in your life that has happened, and I call it the Tower card moment. And we will all experience this. We will not get out of life without experiencing some form of the Tower card moment. It's inevitable. It's all part of the human experience. For some of us, it may only happen once in our lifetime. For others, we just have a harder path in life. And for whatever reason, I like to believe that God, the divine, chooses his greatest warriors to experience the most hardship, the most trauma in life. So if you have had so far a lot of major life events, if you've had a lot of Tower card moments in your life, if you've experienced a lot of trauma, for me, I've lost so many people close to me within the last couple of years. And it's just been a Tower card moment after Tower card moment. And it's really, really hard to deal with. But because of that, I look at it as those of us experiencing these major life shifts, these major changes, this massive trauma, we are the warriors, and the divine God has chosen us to fight the hardest battles. Whether we like it or not, we were chosen for this. I've actually found a meme that made me laugh about, I'll find it and put it here, but of us are just tired, and that's part of the void. We are so tired from all this trauma that we kind of just end up numb and apathetic, and I want to just stop fighting these battles. So I'm talking about how to master this. I do consider myself an expert in rebirthing because I have been through so much trauma. I have gone through my fair share, probably in one lifetime, of not only grief and loss, but just huge traumas in my life of domestic violence and abuse. And I've been sexually assaulted. I've been in deep poverty. I've experienced it all, a lot of hardships. Granted, I'm still here, I'm still thriving, and I've honestly become a master at rebirthing myself, and I've become really comfortable with the void, honestly. I know that it's a part of life, it's a cycle, and that's what I want to share with you guys and teach you, because I see so many people just suffering in the world right now, and collectively, look at the pandemic in the last couple of years. We've all gone through Tower card moments where a lot of us weren't working, and the loss of job, which is our security, our finances, and really our careers are part of our identity. And we had that taken from us, and we were just stuck at home, and all of the politics regarding COVID and just everything we went through as a collective. People are still struggling with their mental health. I feel like we've become socially stunted as a society. A lot of people are financially struggling. So I think collectively, we're just experiencing this major shift, and a lot of us are still in the void right now. And for those who are unfamiliar with it, who have never felt this way, it can be so scary. And I've noticed increase in suicides, and just especially in young people, which absolutely breaks my heart. Our teens and early 20s are committing suicide when their life is just beginning, and because they have entered this void, this deep depression, or this apathetic state where they just stop caring anymore. And that is why I want to share what I've learned as I've become an expert in rebirthing myself out of this, out of the void, as this phoenix rising from the ashes, to share with you guys tips, because I don't want anyone to suffer anymore. I don't want you watching this to feel like you're alone in this, or God forbid, consider doing something that you will regret that can't be changed. So that is the purpose of this class and what I'm sharing with you guys. So when I mentioned earlier, something so life-changing that happens to us, whatever traumatic event, it's a life-changing event that changes who you are as a person forever, whether it's a loss of someone very dear to you, loss of job where you completely have to change tracks on your career, divorce is a huge one, or even just a breakup when you had planned a life with this person. Whatever it is, this major life change, this major shift, this Tower card moment, as I call it, going back to the tarot. So the Tower card, a lot of us who have had tarot readings or do read tarot are familiar with the Tower card. And the Tower card is part of the major arcana. And it's probably one of the most feared cards within the tarot. And the reason for that, it's even more feared than death, the Death card, is because it signifies a life-changing, disastrous, catastrophic event that will unfold. And this, to a lot of us, is a fate worse than death. Because death, at least we go into the afterlife and there's peace within that. This leaves us scarred for life, if we allow it. But it changes us forever. So that Tower card moment, that life-changing trauma that happens to you, only after we go through our Tower card moment do we enter the void. Now, I am talking specifically about rising up from the ashes, from being in the void. So this is for those who are currently in the void, those who may have gone through the void already and are looking for tips and tricks on how to get out of it when it inevitably happens again, because we are constantly changing, we are constantly flowing like the seasons. You know, winter is the season of the void. It's cold and we are self-reflective and introspective. We stay inside and we don't do much. We're kind of just resting. Whereas summer, we're out socializing and sharing our gifts with the world. So that is when we're rising, and spring and fall are kind of the transition periods in between. So we are constantly changing, we are constantly flowing as people, and no state is permanent. No feeling's permanent. So even if you're feeling really crummy and within that void today, just know that it's temporary. There's always tomorrow. And I'm sure you've heard that so many times, but it's the truth. But that also goes with the good. It is likely that we will experience major shifts again. So even if you aren't currently in the void right now, I want to give you the tips and tricks I have learned through the numerous times I've had to rebirth myself and rise from the ashes. For when it inevitably comes back around, you feel prepared with the tools to accept the void. So Empress rising, and I've called it that because thinking about the phoenix that rises from the ashes. And for a lot of us, myself included, my first introduction with the phoenix was through Harry Potter. And if you grew up around the same time as me and you read the Harry Potter books and saw the movie, it was probably your first introduction to the phoenix as well. And I distinctly remember this scene where Dumbledore's phoenix died. He just burns up in flames and Harry is traumatized because he thinks that Dumbledore's phoenix is dead. The phoenix that saved him just burned up in flames. And he's crying and Dumbledore just seems so calm. And Dumbledore tells him, "No, Harry, it's fine. It's a cycle of life. The phoenix rises from the ashes and rebirths again." So that is all about this class. We are the phoenix and we are rising from the ashes. And how do we do so? So the void is experiencing a deep sadness after a life-changing event that has caused us to lose part of our identity. Something you have identified with has disintegrated. So you could be feeling a deep sadness, pain, numbness, or even pleasure at this time, and sometimes a little bit of everything. That is the void. And within Tantra, what I have been studying is feeling all emotions for what they are. So instead of suppressing them like we are taught from a young age in this culture in the West, especially for men who are told not to cry, like boys don't cry, or, you know, come on, you're tough, be a tough girl, don't cry, like it's seen as weak to feel. No, in Tantra, we learn that feeling all of our emotions is our strength, and looking at this deep sadness and pain and saying, how can I find bliss within this pain? That is a part of Tantra. So the void and your experience in the void is not, how do I get out of this? What do I do? What action do I take? No, it is sitting in the void and letting yourself. So it is simply just surrendering to your emotions, to your feelings, feeling them deeply, and just sitting with it, sitting in the void, and recognizing that it's okay to do nothing. When I'm in the void, I want to just curl up in a ball on my couch and I rewatch Gilmore Girls, because as many times as I've seen Gilmore Girls, it's something that brings me joy and happiness, and it's kind of just a happy show, like not too much drama, I don't have to think too much. So recognizing that it's okay to just accomplish the little things, even when you don't want to get out of bed. It's sitting with your feelings and not trying to push them away. So doing what feels good to you. If you want to sit in bed all day, sit in bed all day. But at the same time, recognizing that you still need self-love and self-discipline. And self-discipline is a form of self-love. So even if it's the little victories that you can focus on, like brushing your teeth or brushing your hair, you know, try to at least maintain some form of hygiene when you're in the void. I know how difficult it can be to even just get up and shower, but at least strive to do one small thing today to take care of yourself. So it's being really gentle with ourselves, our thoughts, feelings, and emotions at this time. As many of you may or may not know, I created this program, the 21-Day Self-Love Club, and its sister program, the 21-Day Dedication to Self-Love and Discovery with Aphrodite, while I was in the void after having my own Tower card moment. And it was while I was in the void and searching for answers and just not feeling good and just wanting help to get out of this state when the goddess Aphrodite really called to me and opened my door to this unconditional love that I have now for myself. And because of that, I have unconditional love for others, for the collective, and for the earth. So without her coming into my life as I was just desperately praying for answers to my problems, to just get out of feeling this way, she came in and introduced me to just this loving energy that I now carry and I'm now sharing with you guys. So I surrendered to the void, to my feelings, and that is when the inspiration came. And that Tower card moment for me, and I've had several throughout my life, so God, if you're listening, I know that I'm strong and I'm one of your toughest warriors, but please, can you stop sending me your toughest battles? I have been through enough and I'm only 30 years old. So yeah, who knows what's to come. Let's just hope that I get a little break from the void and all these Tower card moments, but you never know. Life is so crazy and just chaotic, and we don't know what's to come. So my Tower card moment, one of many, started in 2020. For those of you who may know me outside of this group in real life, you may have heard this story before, but my grandfather passed away February 2020, right before my birthday. And that was the first time I had ever lost anybody close to me. And my grandfather was super close to me. He had such an impact on my life, on my childhood growing up, and he really was more of a father figure than just a grandfather. And I loved him dearly. And I still love him dearly. I know he's watching over me now, but that was incredibly difficult to go through that loss. And I hadn't fully recovered. So I hadn't fully recovered from his loss. And then 2021, August, I found out that my stepdad had terminal liver cancer, and he wasn't even 60. So whereas my grandfather, as much as it hurt, he was in his 80s and had lived his life, had a great, amazing life. My stepdad was only 59, which is too young. And whereas my grandfather had this peaceful, quick death, I had to watch my stepdad suffer from liver cancer, which was a horrific way to die. So that was very traumatic, and I was very close with him too. And I didn't even get to see him in the end due to the COVID restrictions with hospitals, which that's a whole nother ballpark, and I don't even want to get into that because it makes me so angry that we weren't allowed to see people who were dying during that time. So I had that happen. And then the love of my life, and the person I had been in a long-term relationship with, I had planned my future with, I thought was my soulmate and love of my life, we had a falling out, and it was a traumatic falling out. It wasn't like an amicable breakup. No, it was quite traumatic around the same time that my stepfather was passing away. So he was gone, and that was a major tower card moment because part of my identity, part of the future, part of the little family that we had was now missing, was now gone. And so I had 3 huge holes left of just grief and despair. And my life changed, my ego, my identity. I felt while I was in the void like I didn't know who I was, and I was in deep pain. And I didn't really take the time and allowed myself to be in that void to process those feelings. I didn't grieve them in the proper way. Instead, I immediately just was looking for distraction. So I started dating again, and I will also post a podcast I recently did about how toxic modern dating culture is. You guys are welcome to listen to that after this. It was a point in my life where I was just looking for distraction. So I was just kind of going on dates. I had a relationship with 2 men around this time. Both of them, which I hurt because I was traumatized. So I hurt both of them, and maybe they are coming across this now and hearing this, or maybe my other podcasts where I go more into detail about what happened in those situations. But I was a traumatized individual, and people hurt people. And I ended up hurting myself long term because I just did not care. I did not care about anyone else's feelings. I didn't care how my actions affected others. I was simply just going off of emotion, and I wasn't healed. I was hurting very badly in that time. And I also began drinking a lot, and I've never drank liquor. I actually think I have an allergy to alcohol, where if I drink liquor, like I can have a drink and go out. 1 drink, I'm fine, or like 2. But if I drink more than that, I get really, really sick. And it's happened like every time I have drank in excess. That was kind of my experience in my 20s. And I'm not talking just throwing up once. I'm like talking, I am so sick the whole night, puking, and the next day. So because of that, I've never really even liked drinking. But I would stick to wine, and I wouldn't even really drink to get drunk, but it became a daily habit where if I felt like I didn't have my glass or 2 of wine, then I was I would just get edgy, like angry. I wasn't the mother that my boys needed. And I think that it was an addiction, honestly, because I had to have it every day. No, I wasn't getting drunk. I wasn't drinking in excess necessarily, but it was still a dependence on a substance, and I don't think that's healthy. I was deeply hurting at this time. I was crying every day, every night. My sleep, I had such terrible insomnia. I would even cry at work. Like, I would go to work and act like everything was fine and then lock myself in the bathroom on my break and just sob. So it can be a breakup. It can be a loss of a loved one. It can be even manifesting something that isn't working out. Whatever it is, it's this deep, deep dream that we had, this vision that we had for ourselves that is suddenly taken away from us, and it's traumatizing. And that's what leaves us in the void. And until we surrender to those feelings and allow them to pass through us, and we allow ourselves to grieve, only then will inspiration come to us. And for me, it came in the form of the goddess, Aphrodite, sending her love to me when I so desperately needed it. But it can come to you in so many different ways. However it comes to you, just know that you have to go through this void for that inspiration to come. So it wasn't until 2 years later, when I fully surrendered to the void and allowed myself to feel, and I allowed the goddess to come into my life, that I finally created this program and the 21-day program that comes after it, and had all these ideas, and I was just feeling inspired. I had this deep divine inspiration flowing through me. And this just happened in January when I finally came out of the void. So, it isn't until we surrender that this will come into our lives. And surrendering and trusting are a big part of this. And before we come out of the void, we must set up the foundation and regulate our nervous system before we go into any big changes. Otherwise, we are setting ourselves up for failure. So when I was in the void, when I lost 2 people so close to me, and I was just not in good health, good mental health, and I lost the love of my life, I know what my life was going to look like. I didn't know if I would ever find love again. I didn't know where I was going to live, like who my partner would be. It was very, very uncertain. But surrendering to that and just trusting that it would be okay is kind of what led me out of the void. And if we don't take the necessary steps to regulate our nervous system and prepare for the changes of life, we will go back to where we're comfortable, and we will regress to old patterns and a place of safety. And that place of safety isn't always the best for us. We may go back to old relationships that were toxic just because we feel comfortable with that person. And change is scary. It is. Like, none of us want to have these life changes. We want to stay where we're comfortable, but it's not always the best place for us to be. And that's why we must take these steps. Looking at an example of lottery winners, that 70% of people who win the lottery become broke or bankrupt within 3 years. And the reason for that is they've just come into this large sum of money and they weren't prepared for it. They didn't regulate their nervous system. They didn't go through and take the necessary steps to transition from not having money to amassing this huge wealth. And so they just spend it and become broke. And for me personally, as I was going through my Tower card moments after my breakup, was someone who I planned my whole entire future with, I didn't take that time to grieve the loss of that relationship. And I was just putting myself out there and trying to date again. And it was really toxic, because what I really should have been doing is mourning the loss of this relationship. And that's what it is. It is a form of grieving when we break up. I should have stayed home. I should have cried more. I should have watched rom-coms and allowed myself to feel in order to heal from that. Instead, I was trying to just forget about it and numb the pain in any way I could think of. And yeah, I was going out socializing and trying to date, and just that attention felt good at the time and it distracted me, but I inevitably ended up driving those partners away because, one, I hurt their self-esteem by talking about my ex nonstop because I wasn't healed from him, and I pushed myself too soon. So we need to make sure we take the steps to regulate our nervous system and not push ourselves too soon. And I understand how hard it is in the society that, we have jobs, we have to work, we can't just lay in bed and cry. That's not an option, especially for mothers, especially single mothers. Skipping out on work and just laying in bed all day is just not an option for us, especially when we have kids to take care of. So I'm not saying that. I mean, that would be toxic advice, but on weekends, instead of trying to go out and socialize when you're not ready, take that time you need and grieve. And because our society is so ambition driven, so masculine, and we really honor hustlers and go-getters as life, not everyone's going to be supportive of you when you tell them that you need to take this time for yourself. It could come from well-meaning family and friends, especially after a breakup, when you are crying over this man and they tell you, why are you crying over him? He's not worth it. You should put yourself out there and try to move on. Well, I'm here to tell you from my experience, because I have went through this numerous times, take that time and grieve that person. You don't need to move on right away. It's okay to cry over them, no matter what they did to you, even if it was a horribly toxic relationship you escaped from. Take that time and grieve that person, because you did have a past with them, and it's necessary for you before you can move on into a healthy relationship. Knowing and recognizing while you are in the void, while you're in this place of grieving, that the day and the time will come when you wake up and you are ready to socialize and put yourself back out there, and you're ready to embrace the world, and you have this divine inspiration. Just knowing that that day is coming, that it's okay to honor where you're feeling right now. If you're just feeling blah and like you just want to lay in bed all day, honor that feeling and prioritize your self-care, making sure that you're still taking care of yourself, you're still eating nutritiously, you're getting enough sleep, and you're brushing your teeth. Whatever you need to do in that moment, and honoring that is perfectly fine. And naturally, it is human nature to want to control our realities, to control what is happening to us and the world around us. And we can manifest, we truly can, any reality we desire and want for ourselves. But sometimes the universe has an even greater plan for us than we could ever imagine. And so surrendering to that place, surrendering to that feeling, and we can feel when these traumas come up. Why is this happening to me? Why do I have to go through this? Why, God? But surrendering and knowing that there's a greater plan for you. Having that knowledge when things don't work out, that the universe has something even greater in store for us, is really powerful when we feel so helpless. And that is a big part of my mantra personally to myself, an affirmation that I tell myself when I'm going through it. And I'm telling myself this now as I am experiencing quite a bit of grief. And like I said, I haven't entered the void yet, but I know it's inevitable to come. Just surrender and trust, surrender and trust, surrender and trust. Just telling myself that over and over really, really helps when I'm feeling uncertain. And honestly, the faster that we surrender to that higher power and trust the divine and that things will work out, the faster we will get out of the void.
So I wanted to share an excerpt from my poetry book that I am working on.
It has always just come natural for me, and whenever I'm struggling with something or I have a lot of emotions, then I just go inward and I write. And I don't write with any sort of plan. I sort of let whatever flows out intuitively from me onto the paper. This is something I have written while being in the void that really captures that feeling of hopelessness and then the sudden realization that it's only temporary. So I'll read it to you guys here.
Senseless, black, no concept of time, exists within the void. It's the black hole that resides within the mind. Am I going crazy? Or am I just hard to find? Desolation, like nighttime in the desert. I lay here, devoid of emotion. Life has been moving in slow motion. Only there was some kind of potion to tame my fear, escape from this hell, this mental prison cell. I write when I'm unwell, 9 pages of rhymes. I reflect on my prime, when love was easy. The butterfly lands on my shoulder, freely spreading its wings, reminding me new beginnings are the path for me. Endings inevitably divisible by 3s. Down to the river I go, to drown my woes. Floating, it takes me through the water, drifting. Need to be, I surrender. I hope this resonated with some of you. Poetry has been a huge part of my path on my journey to self-discovery.
Number 9 and the symbolism of number 9 in my life, as that is my life path number in numerology. And once I have, through numerology, I've really discovered so many answers about my life and why my life has been the way it is, why certain things have happened to me. Learning about my life path really helped me to have answers, I guess, as to why I've experienced so much trauma. And the number 9, which is my number, is all about new beginnings and starting over and endings. And often, as number 9s, we experience a significant amount of trauma in our lives as we go through it because we have these lessons to learn. We are on our last life path, and there's doors we must close from previous lives. So if we haven't resolved these issues in our previous lifetimes, they come to us in this lifetime. Thus, we have to go through all of these hardships to resolve them. And I'm not going to go too deep into numerology or life path. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I wanted to mention the symbolism within the poetry surrounding the number 9 and how it relates to me personally within the void. On another note, I recently went to New Orleans and I got this bracelet from the Marie Laveau store, and it has Papa Legbau's name on it. He is a voodoo loa, if you guys are familiar with the story of Papa Legbau and Marie Laveau at all. This bracelet is for new beginnings. So my whole entire life has been starting over and endings and new beginnings. So I'm really familiar with that concept, and that's why I wear this, because I'm constantly rebirthing myself. I'm constantly rising up out of the ashes. And so new beginnings are a cornerstone of my life, at least. So I really like to meditate on that poem and just sitting in silence, breathing fully into my belly, surrendering to those feelings of identity loss, of change, fear of the unknown, surrendering, and recognizing that it's okay. The things I am certain about. The sun is shining. I hear birds chirping. It's a beautiful day. And just coming back to that meditation on what I do know when the future is so uncertain. That is why I wear this, to remind me that new beginnings are a part of life, and especially a big part of my life thus far. And so your priorities when you are mastering the void and you are the Empress rising up from your ashes, surrendering and trusting in your higher power that there is a plan for you, even when you're afraid of the unknown. Don't rush yourself when you are still healing from traumas. Take the time you need to feel, to rest, and to surrender to those emotions. Things you are certain of and holding on to them in times of uncertainty is so important. So now we will begin our little journal prompt together. So make sure you have your journals out, and I want you to journal 5 things, more if more come up for you, but at least 5 minimum things that you are absolutely certain of in this moment in time. And recognizing and holding on to the things you are certain of in times of uncertainty will help you to get out of the void faster. So for example, I shared about my breakup and also the grief I've experienced. So going back to the breakup, it can seem really uncertain once we have gone through a breakup, especially one so devastating when we've planned our life around this person and on being with this person. If that is your experience, you can journal that you are certain he was not your king. If he was your king, it would have worked out the way it was supposed to. That means that your king is still out there. So you could write, I am certain that so-and-so was not my king or queen, and that you are lovable because you are. And the love of your life is out there. You can meet them tomorrow. And that possibility is so exciting, that your king or queen is out there waiting for you. And you can journal on that. I've shared my struggles with grief after losing someone you love, and that can be very uncertain because, you know, death is the end and we're never going to see them again, at least in this lifetime. But what I am certain of is that, and I lost my dad recently too, I am certain that he's gone, at least in body, from this life. But I am so certain that he is up there watching me now, and he is my guide. That he is one of my guides, a very powerful one too. I have one hell of a guardian angel now, and I am certain of that. So that's something you could put in your journal if you've recently lost a loved one. If you've lost a job and you're uncertain about the future, how you're going to provide for your family, you can journal about this job loss and put that you are certain that you've lost your job, but you are certain that you want to work in some way where you are of service to people. You want to have an impact on others' lives. You want to help people in some way. You want to make a difference in the world. So you are certain that your future job will be in some way of service to others. Now, taking the time, taking a few minutes to journal on what you're certain about, and I'll play some music for you guys while we journal.
Quickly, money flow easy. Every dime I spend back in my pockets, make it times 3. Money flow thickly, money flow swiftly, for the good of all and harm to none. It's on its way to me. I am protected, I am connected, I am at peace. My bank account happy, I'm taking care of me. Don't got nobody else to please. I'm grateful for all I got already. I'm complete.
All right, so once you've finished journaling on what you are certain of, I now want you to journal things you are sure about yourself and who you are. And the reason I want you to journal on this is because knowing ourselves deeply, authentically, will allow us to be more confident. And the more confidence we have, the more we can speak our truth, the more we can share with others, we can recognize our voice, and the more we can change the world, because the world needs you and your uniqueness in it to make a change. So we have to know ourselves deeply. And the void is a time of uncertainty. And honestly, in my experience, it was a major lack of confidence and not knowing myself, not knowing what was going to happen. I felt like I didn't even know who I was anymore when I was going through the void. So I want you to journal and put as many things as you can think of during this time. Things you know for sure about yourself and who you are. So I want them to be as specific and unique to you as possible. Please saying I'm tall, I'm blonde, and I have blue eyes. No, I'm not accepting that in your journal because one, a lot of people have those features. You're not focusing on physical traits. I honor and I encourage us to feel beautiful with our outward appearance as well as our inner appearance. But I want to go deeper than just our outward appearance. I want you to think of things that you have, traits you have that no one else does, that are simply unique to you, and you know who you are deeply. So I want you to list them. And this is a form of loving ourselves and finding ourselves and building up confidence with ourselves. So as the more we know who we are, the more comfortable we can be with that, and the more authenticity we can share with the world. So go ahead and list out as many things you can think of as possible within this time period, and I'll put the music back on so you can journal.
Money flow thickly, money flow swiftly for the good of all and harm to none. It's on its way to me. I gotta thank the universe for all that I receive. Anything is possible if you just believe. I be manifesting money and you know I got receipts. My wallet real heavy. I am thankful. I am ready to
Out of the void before regulating our nervous system, because I did this when I came out of the void back in January. I was feeling so divinely inspired and this energy flowing through me after not feeling like myself for so long that I rushed in and I started creating all of these yoga classes and meditations and just setting myself up and committing myself to so many things at once that I was not ready for. I didn't regulate my nervous system enough to prepare for rushing into this. And part of it was, the reason I did this was comparing myself to others in the industry who were teaching all these classes, others in the yoga industry who were further ahead than I was, and to rushing myself, feeling rushed. So comparing myself and then rushing myself, wanting things to manifest quicker than the universe intended. So wanting things to be done now, wanting to have a successful yoga business now without taking the time and building up that foundation to where I feel comfortable. And because of all the things I signed myself up for, I just started to feel super overwhelmed and anxious. And then because I had prepared so many classes that I needed to prepare for, and the amount of work it took and the marketing to get students to come to my classes, it just started to become a chore and anxiety inducing instead of what I enjoyed it for. And my own personal yoga practice was taking a back seat to trying to build a business, which any yoga teacher knows that we have to practice daily, essentially, to be a great teacher. We have to be deep within our own practice as well. So I wasn't even practicing yoga myself daily, yet trying to build this business, and it just felt really rushed and really stressful, and I didn't enjoy it anymore. Now, I still teach yoga classes, and I'm still going to teach them, but I have realized, and I've done the work to regulate my nervous system, that I shouldn't have signed myself up and committed to so many classes at once in the beginning. I'm going to take it much slower, even though in this society we feel like we want things done now and things need to happen quickly, that it's okay to take baby steps to get to where we want to be. So going back to that and how, in my experience, not regulating my nervous system and setting myself up for too many things too soon caused me to take a step back, which really it would feel as if I'm going backwards in my business. But I recognize and honor that it's all part of the process. And it allows me to deepen my own practice and become an even better yoga teacher and even add more value to my students, because I'm going to take the time necessary to build that foundation, that business. So I want you to journal on why whatever change you are currently going through is the best thing to happen to you. And I know this is so hard to do, especially when it's something traumatic that is happening to us, like a loss of a loved one or a breakup or a move back to your hometown because you couldn't afford to live in the city, whatever it is, having to take a step back in your business because you're feeling overwhelmed. Journal on why it's the best thing for you so we can recognize what the universe has in store for us. And really, journaling is what's going to help us realize this. So let's say you did have to move back in with your parents as an adult. And I know how disheartening this can be because I've had to do it myself, because I moved away at a young age. I also became a mother at a young age. And when things did not work out with my kid's father, and I had to move back home to a town that I wasn't particularly happy in, I didn't really feel like I fit in with, and I had to go back to school. Like I went from nothing to building myself up to in the world. So I really had nothing at this time, several years back, when I had to move back in with my family, go back to school and pursue a career in healthcare, just starting from the ground up, and how disheartening that is. But I recognize now that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be here teaching this, for one. I wouldn't have gone back to school and pursued a career in healthcare, which allows me to make the money I do now to support my family. So if you don't take a step back and recognize that this change, as horrible as it may feel, is the best thing to happen to you, you will miss out on what the universe is intending for you. So I will play some more music and let you guys journal.
Happiness and success is what I really achieve. I'm accomplished, I am worthy, I am thankful to be me. Gonna be just right, gonna be alright. I know how high the tides. 1, 2, 3, gonna focus on me, meditate and just breathe. Affirmations are key. All I need is me, I'm already complete.
All right, so just finishing up your journaling, getting back to it in your own time. And before we close out this class for today on the Empress Rising, I want you guys to get a couple key takeaways from this class. So one, and this is the big one, understanding that when these things happen to you beyond our control, these horrible traumas, these changes that just challenge our identity, change our whole life and the path we are on, understanding the reason for this and trusting in the timing of the universe, because the universe has something even better intended for you than you could even imagine. And knowing this as a sense of comfort for when you are feeling so uncertain in life. And acknowledging that something even better is on its way to you for your highest good and the highest good of all. Coming back to the poem I wrote of Surrounding the Void, coming back, floating down that river and letting life take you where you're meant to be, and letting go of previous goals you've had and expectations, and your attachment to your past self is no longer there anymore. And you are allowed to rebirth, and you're allowed to reinvent yourself as many times as you need to. And that you have no obligation to your past self to be that person anymore. If you don't like where you're at, you are allowed to change. You're allowed to change your life. I've done this several times. I'm a completely different person than from who I was after my Tower card moment last year, when I was going through the void and just the self-destructive behaviors I was doing and hurting people. That woman is eons away from who I am at present. And it's okay. It's hard to let go of the past, and I honor and recognize that, but you are allowed to rebirth from the ashes and become a whole new you, become the phoenix rising, the Empress rising. You tell yourself as many times as you need to that I am loved, I am lovable, and I stake claim to my throne, to my crown as the Empress rising. We take these steps, and like I said, I love the tarot, and so I use that in my metaphors for this class. So step 1 that we all go through, the Tower card, the collapse of civilization, our world as we know it has collapsed. We've experienced the Tower card. We may or may not be here in the void now, but this is where I want you to stake your claim, and this is where I want you to surrender to and heal and let the divine guide you where you need to be. Stake your claim, claim your throne as queen of the void if you need to, empress of the void, empress rising, because you are rising out of this. This is only temporary. You are not stuck here. So claim it. Claim your rising now. Give a declaration to yourself right now of who you are moving forward and who you will be, what you will put up with and what you won't, what you will allow into your life and what you won't. Once you've taken those steps to heal, to regulate your nervous system and prepare for that change in life, only then, and when that divine inspiration comes to you, when you are ready for it, you will be the Empress rising from the ashes. You will be queen of your universe, your unique universe, where you fully know and trust yourself and trust in your intuition. You are confident and you know what you will accept in this life. You've learned the lesson. You've experienced all 3 of these steps. And now you've blossomed into the Empress. And if you are still in the void and you are not ready to stake your claim yet, that is fine. These are just tips for you when that time comes and you are ready. And these are great questions to ruminate on when you are in the void. Thinking about your standards, what you accept, what you are setting up for yourself, and knowing your power and what you'll put up with and what you won't. Learning the lesson from that Tower card moment, because that is simply what it is. It may feel like your world is falling apart, but it's just the universe teaching you a lesson. And that is the tips that I want to give to you, babes, for this practice. And I want you all to set standards for yourself when you are ready, wherever you are on this journey, on what you will accept from now on and what you won't. I really, really want you to meditate on the lessons you have learned and journal on this as well. Because we are creating our reality with our thoughts and actions. And if we aren't healing ourselves, then we are only going to bring more hurt in the world and more hurt to the collective. So really just ruminate on this and claim your power, because you are worth it. You are worthy. You are so worthy of this. Releasing our previous beliefs and forgiving ourselves and forgiving others and not reacting to the external world. It's controlling the controllables, because we can't control what happens to us, unfortunately. And bad things are inevitably going to happen within our lifetime at some point. Hopefully not several times over, but if it does happen to you several times like it has for me, practice this, please, so that you can come out of it stronger and wiser. And this program holds a lot of releasing and letting go type of ceremonies, because that is just so important when it comes to the rebirthing process. Is that old part of ourself dies and we awaken to this higher power, this higher vibrational self that we become. And those lessons, those traumas we went through were all things that we needed to learn in this lifetime. And I'm constantly doing rituals on releasing and cord cutting, because my life has just been filled with so much change. And that is why it's a core practice of mine. And what I'm an expert in is rebirthing. And that's why I'm teaching it to you guys. All right, love. So I just want to close out this practice, this class, with the law of rhythm, that life is cyclical. We are always moving, we are always changing, and we are never stuck. So that little word of advice for you. I hope that you enjoyed the journal prompts. Feel free to come back and practice these prompts at any time when you are going through this cycle of life that is just craziness. If this resonated for you, please let me know. I hope it has. And if you have anything you want to share, feel free to in the comments below, because we are here for you. This is a community I'm creating, a sisterhood I'm creating, and we support each other in this group. I will see you guys tomorrow for, gosh, what are we on now? Day 6? Yes, day 6 tomorrow. So I will see you lovelies then. Have a wonderful night.